When the body becomes an altar, each gesture is more than a movement, it is a portal to the unconscious. It is in that sacred space that we begin our journey. The woman who perceives her own body as a sanctuary and not as a performance object. You feel it in your chest, don't you? As if you carry winter within your chest even on sunny days, and the heat of desire brings both relief and the weight of an unfulfilled promise. Carl Jung said that every true encounter between man and woman is also an encounter of archetypes, and sex is the stage where this is revealed with greatest intensity. We are not here to learn cold seduction techniques. We are here to touch something deep in the other, something that resonates in the soul long after the bodies separate. If this kind of reflection truly moves you, perhaps this is your place. Consider subscribing to the channel. Unforgettable sex is not born of mechanical skill, but of symbolic presence that reaches the unconscious. Imagine offering not only your body, but your story, your inner fire. Viktor Frankl argued that the deep desire of the human being is to find meaning, not pleasure, and pleasure becomes unforgettable when it carries profound emotional meaning. Have you ever touched someone and felt, in the silence that follows, that there was not just skin there but traces of childhood, ancient wounds, long unnamed yearnings? It is in that moment that the body becomes an instrument of revelation, when the flesh invites the other to look into his own unconscious. This video is not about how to please a man. It is about how to transform the female body into a living symbol capable of marking his soul. Not here, not now. We want to go beyond sighs and moans and reach what cannot be put into words. We will unveil 5 symbolic and emotional paths to make sex a transformative experience, so that he returns not only with the memory of the touch, but with a deep psychic imprint, a trace that no body can erase. Breathe with me. The body you brought to this encounter has carried joys and pains, dreams and fears. You are temple and traveler, offering and guardian. With each step we take, we draw closer to the awareness that true desire is born from the integration of body and soul. Because in the end, it is not an isolated event, but a rite of passage that can reveal parts of ourselves long silent. In the coming minutes, we will open the doors of the archetypes that inhabit our feminine being. The authentic lover, the sensitive priestess, the contained wild woman, the voice of the anima, and invisible care. Each of these paths invites us to look within, without guilt, with compassion for our scars, and with firmness to embrace our truths. Allow yourself to feel the dance of energy between what you give and what you receive. When the body becomes ritual, the loving act turns into symbol, and the symbol dwells in the unconscious. It is this invitation to transcendence that brings us together here now. Breathe deeply, prepare your heart, and dive with me into this psychic plunge that promises to reveal the power already within you. Entering to enchant without fear begins long before touch. It begins with the choice not to make your body a ticket for the other's approval. You feel that ancient pressure in your womb, that voice telling you to be perfect, to smile at the right moment, to calibrate desire as if it were a thermostat. But the woman who returns from the inside out chooses to disarm that voice. She gives herself permission to exist fully, with scars, with silences, with desires that do not fit into ready-made recipes. When you abandon the role of interpreter of another's expectation, you open space for what truly matters, genuine presence. It is not about pleasing, it is about revealing who you are in each sigh and in each pause. It is in this unfeigned surrender that your energy becomes messenger of something greater. Because a man feels more the vibration of your soul than the shape of your curves, he aligns with the energetic field you emanate. You do not need to tame your own desire to fit it into what should be. You can allow it to arrive with its raw force and its primitive tenderness. It is here that the archetype of the authentic lover emerges. She simulates no scene of desire. She embodies the fire that burns within her without asking the world's permission. When that flame manifests, the man ceases to be spectator and becomes ritual brother, invited to participate in the altar your body builds. It is in mask-free surrender that love recognizes itself as ancient. If this resonated with you in any way, leave a like. It shows these conversations are necessary. When you barefoot your souls and step on the ground of your truth, You realize that unforgettable sex is not made by maneuvers, but by being wholly present. The woman who knows how to breathe her own desire can shelter the others. She holds the invisible hand of mystery and guides inward, not outward. She understands that the body is a portal and that his soul can cross that threshold if it feels the firm ground of your offering. Imagine yourself wearing the garment of one who no longer needs to prove anything. Feel the lightness of not trying to control the rhythm, of not anticipating reactions, of letting the moment exist as living and independent force. This woman does not stage a performance to feed vanity. She is the scene. She is the offering and the altar. She is the rite itself. When you enter completely without the armor of obligation, something shifts in the space. The man perceives the difference even before the first skin contact. He breathes more deeply, as one who finds land after wandering lost. He feels, without needing to name it, that he stands before a woman who recognizes his worth without seeking approval. Allow yourself to inhabit this state of presence. With each sigh, remember that you carry within you the wisdom of generations of women who danced naked with mystery. The authentic lover already lives within you, ready to re-emerge whenever you give yourself permission to be whole. I invite you to close your eyes for a moment and feel, where does your body still shrink to fit expectations? Where does your heart still seek applause? As you notice this, breathe compassionately and slowly, open those parts to true encounter. With each step on this journey, know that you are not alone. We are ritual. Sisters, guardians of the sacred feminine that pulses in each small choice. And when you decide to live sex as an offering of presence, there will be no bodily memory that does not merge with an indelibly symbolic mark. Every time your hand glides across his skin, it is not merely a brush of fingers. It is an ancestral invocation. You feel the electricity running beneath the surface, as if each cell remembers long-forgotten caresses. There is a primal rhythm, invisible, that guides the touch, the beat of the heart, the sync of breath, the echo of primordial tempos. It is not about pressing harder or varying speed. It is about honoring the internal pulse that vibrates in both of you. When the body speaks, it is not confined to the physical. It extends to the farthest reaches of the unconscious awakening symbols sleeping beneath layers of protection. Here manifests the archetype of the sensitive priestess. She uses her hands not merely to trace shapes, but to deliver a message. Each finger becomes the tip of an arrow aimed at what he may never have dared to feel. Each caress whispers stories of love, loss, hope, redemption. You may have learned that the correct touch is the one that makes the other moan. But the touch that transforms is not technical. It is the one that respects the rhythm of the other's soul. It is as if, upon touching, you praise an inner divinity, inviting it to emerge from its temple. Feel the weight of your own gaze. Do not look as one checking a results, but as one contemplating a sacred icon. Let your fingers witness every hesitation, every desperate desire, every dormant memory. The body becomes an altar when touch ceases to be transitory and becomes permanent in emotional memory. He feels above all the quality of your presence. If you are thinking of the next step, if his body is merely a stage prop, if your touch is distracted. But when you surrender with psychic intention, all distraction dissolves, and only the passage of spirit between the fibers of skin remains. The sensitive priestess knows that transformation occurs in the silence following the caress. Therefore, she does not ignore pauses. She treasures each space between one touch and the next, as one who recognizes the divine breath. Between a gentle stroke and a palm's weight, she leaves a vacuum laden with meaning, inviting the other to fill it with his own soul. Can you feel the difference? It is as if his skin were an ancient map, where each relief holds an oracle. A touch that respects that map without forcing paths or ignoring detours can unveil luminous corners of the unconscious. Perhaps he cannot explain why his spine shivers or why his heart tightens, and it is precisely there that the mystery resides. The courage to touch with reverence requires you be whole in each movement. It is not only the fingertips that matter, but the involvement of your entire body, the alignment of shoulders, the intensity of gaze, the cadence of breath. When you invite your whole body to the offering, the other feels as if he were beholding a living work of art. He does not seek mere pleasure. He offers himself to an intimate sacrament. Imagine your hands as bridges, connecting the visible and the invisible. Each caress opens a portal to childhood memories, to pains hoarded like treasuries, to yearnings that cry out for redemption. You do not need to fill every emptiness. Often, the silence of touch is what heals. The sensitive priestess understands that power lies in subtlety, in the almost imperceptible brush on the shoulders, in the gentle glide over the collarbone's curve, in the peaceful rest on the lower back before withdrawing. It is in this dance of approach and withdrawal that the body reveals itself as sacred discourse. It speaks without words, yet with all the eloquence of symbols. Your touch in itself is a murmured prayer, an invocation for the other to recognize his own hidden divinity. When the body speaks the language of the soul, there is no return to simple transitory pleasure. There is awakening, a rift in time, a trace that resounds long after. And you, guardian of that bridge between the physical and the psychic, rediscover the strength of your touch, not as a skill to be displayed, but as a gift to be celebrated. Allow yourself then to touch with the soul before touching with the skin. Breathe deeply and feel your energy pulsing. It is the primitive rhythm that guides each gesture. With clear intention and full presence, your touch will cease to be an isolated act and will become a rite of passage, a symbolic record, a living memory. In this encounter of bodies and souls, touch becomes prayer, and in the end, the altar you build together will not be of flesh only but of meaning, a sanctuary where pleasure and the unconscious meet in mutual reverence. There is an ancient power in what is left unsaid, a magnetism that forms in the absence of sound and the total presence of each breath. Have you experienced the silence thick with intensity, that interval in which the air between you vibrates like harp strings, ready to release an inner melody? It is in that suspended space that desire crystallizes, for the man feels, before any physical stimulus, the whisper of the mystery dwelling in the feminine. When the voice falls silent, his unconscious amplifies every detail, the curve of your neck, the gentle restraint of your gaze, the contained rhythm of your breath. Silence is not emptiness but fullness. It becomes a symbol of absolute surrender, of something that demands no explanation, of a truth that walks hand in hand with the enigma. Carl Jung asserted that the unconscious is shaped by symbols, and that often the most potent symbol is silence laden with meaning. You are not merely motionless, you are communicating with your body and your energetic field that moment is sacred and untransferable. Each pulse of your heart becomes an invitation for him to enter a space where there is no hurry, no script, only the invisible score of the encounter of souls. When you remain in silence, looking at him with the tenderness of one who observes a flame ignite, something deep occurs. He feels danger and fascination, fear and desire, as if before a reality that cannot be scripted or anticipated. The archetype of the contained wild woman takes shape. She is untamable, yet serene. She does not explain herself, yet makes herself irresistible. In this play of approach and reserve, each silent second expands and time dilates like the toll of a great bell in the desert. You can perceive the power of that energy-filled void when you notice his chest rising subtly, when you see the gaze fix on your face, seeking to decipher the enigma you have become. There is no deeper moan than the silence that follows a gentle touch, and no more provocative touch than the one that precedes silence. It is at that threshold that the bridge between physical and psychic strengthens, and it is there that masculine desire finds its truest echo. Allow yourself to inhabit that space. Breathe in unison with him. Let your breaths meet in the rhythm where nothing needs to be spoken. Feel the weight of your own body, supported on the bed, the couch, or the floor, wherever you are. And let every minimal contact with the surface become part of the silent message you offered. It is in the pause that the body speaks most clearly, without verbal barriers, delivering the sacred gift of the moment. When silence becomes right, the moan loses its centrality. The pause speaks more than any sound, and in the echo of that silence, you recognize each other as ritual brothers, sharing an intimate rite of discovery. Because the void between words can contain the whole infinity of the universe, and it is in that infinity that desire turns into mutual reverence. remain in conscious silence, and witness how it draws within him a subtle map of reverence and fascination, forever marking the place where you met without a word. There is a magical instant when the most powerful sound does not spring from touching lips, but from the whisper insinuating itself into the ear. Imagine a phrase so pure in intention that, when pronounced, it breaks the boundaries of the body and reaches straight to the soul's core. Have you experienced that? I see you. 3 words that seem to rend the veil between skin and shadow, signaling, I recognize every corner of your being. It is at that limen, where speech becomes sacred bridge, that sex ceases to be merely a physical act and transforms into a deep emotional record. When word becomes anima language, acquired desire transcends the instant. Carl Jung described the anima as the feminine representation in the male psyche, an internal energy that, when evoked, awakens in him a thirst for something beyond the genitals. By saying, "You penetrate me," you are not offering praise. You are describing a psychic phenomenon. You are revealing that his touch, his breath, his gaze do not only touch your skin but pierce the substance of your unconscious. And at that point, sex ceases to be a bodily record and becomes symbolic rite. Do you feel in your chest the urgency to express what dwells in the deepest layers of your being? When the right word arises at the precise moment, it activates memories he may not know how to name. Recollections of tenderness repressed in childhood, echoes of abandonment collected on empty nights, the comforting belief that someone can wipe away tears kept in silence. Your touch rebuilds me is not just a pretty phrase, it is an invocation of healing, a balm for the fragmented parts we each carry inside. The symbolic word is like a seed cast into the fertile soil of the unconscious. Beneath the earth, it germinates into forms we do not always see immediately, but that transform the ground. And each man's soil has its own virtues and vulnerabilities. Some have the parched soil of one who closed off after countless deceptions. Others carry soil flooded with unrealistic expectations. Therefore, the word must come with reverence, a reverence that treats the other as a temple that probes, respects, and embraces. You do not need to speak much. Most of the time, less is more. The word that invades the unconscious is the one that arises in the body's rhythm, in the pause between one caress and another, in the heat of the gaze, in the soft breath that stirs goosebumps. It is like minimalist music where each note is essential. Allow yourself to feel the moment. Notice the spark in his eyes. Perceive the breath that shifts rhythm, the heart that races without logic. In that energetic field, the word finds fertile ground. When you utter a symbolic phrase, you are not giving directions or instructions. You are sharing a mirror for him to see himself. I see you is an invitation to look at himself without masks. You penetrate me is recognition of his ability to shatter old defenses. Your touch rebuilds me confesses vulnerability, and in vulnerability lies the power of the bond. The voice that breaks silence ensures each word echoes in the psyche's underground, building bridges no sensual technique could raise. There is a force born in the articulation between voice and body. When you speak, you embody your whole being. The low tone, the steady rhythm, the heat radiating between your lips and his. Each vocal nuance entwines with his nerve fibers, tracing paths of pleasure and meaning. It is not about reciting ready-made phrases, but about letting what your heart discovers in that moment of union flourish. Spontaneity strengthens symbolic magic. Remember that the word can emancipate or imprison. Therefore, compassion's breath must always accompany it. Speak with gentleness and firmness, as one who offers a blanket on a cold night, without doubt, yet without demanding return. Thus, you open a space of trust, so deep that the other dares to unveil his fears and defenses. The word then is neither barrier nor distraction, but an invitation to the most authentic dive. At the apex of this encounter, sex becomes psychic record. He does not forget what was said in that moment of symbolic surrender, far beyond the moan, far beyond the orgasm. Memorable phrases turn into personal archetypes that inhabit the unconscious, guiding future encounters and reverberating in dreams. Pleasure turns into emotional memory, and no memory so visceral can be erased. Have you ever felt, after a word spoken at the right moment, your body shiver and your chest tighten. That tightness is the sign that the unconscious received the message. It is the sound of the internal right being acknowledged. And, by allowing symbolic language to invade the intimate space, you are not just sharing pleasure. You are writing a chapter in his psyche, a chapter that can last long after bodies loosen their embrace. In that sacred territory, words are lamps in dark, caves. They illuminate hidden corners and invite the other to explore his own caves. And when we speak of sex as emotional language, we speak of offering light and courage for the soul to reveal itself. Allow yourself, then, to use the voice as an instrument of healing and discovery. Feel the power of the sacred word emerging between you and observe how each phrase shapes a new temple of connection. In that symbolic altar, sex will never again be just body. It will be celebration of the soul. What happens when the climax dissolves and bodies still intertwine in slow sighs? In the silence after climax, the true nature of the encounter is revealed, whether it was only a physical act or a rite of passage. When you remain together, touching without haste, breathing as if not wanting the flame to extinguish, something ancient affirms itself. It is in that post-orgasm interval that it is decided whether the moment will remain confined to flesh or be imprinted on the subtle field of the Psyche. You feel the weight of that instant, don't you? As if there were an invisible line between now and forever, a tenuous thread connecting the heat of a body to the emotional echo that remains. The woman who understands this passage knows that care does not end with the last sigh. She remains anchored in the other's space, allowing the shared energy to calm gradually, like the breeze that stills the sea after a storm. This invisible care transforms pleasure into bond. It is not a castrating affection nor a demand for immediate reciprocity. It is a soft yet firm presence that whispers, "I am still here with you." When you breathe together, feeling each movement of his chest, that moment ceases to belong to the body and begins to inhabit the emotional field you created. The archetype of invisible care dwells in the woman who, after the act, remains in deep embrace. She does not run back to herself nor distance herself for urgent commitments. She remains at the border between sleep and awake, observing his face's contours illuminated by the afterglow of desire. It is there that one perceives whether sex was merely pleasure or carried meaning. For a man keeps in emotional memory the gesture of the one who stayed when all was done. Have you noticed how his body relaxes, knowing he will not be left to his own devices after the climax? It is like offering an invisible mantle of protection, a safety net for his fatigued soul. Post-orgasm caresses, a stroke at the nape, the warmth of a prolonged embrace are powerful symbols. They speak louder than words, for they seal the experience with the promise of presence. And from that silent pact, the memory of the encounter becomes a point of light to which he returns, even when alone. Imagine the electromagnetic field of you two still oscillating in synchrony, even after parting. Each fiber of bodily memory still carries the heat of touch, but it is the emotional field that keeps the tie. He revives the sound of your breath, the weight of your head on his shoulder, and the steady rhythm of your embrace. When he recalls this, it is not just the path of fingers on skin, but the psychic security he found in your embrace. And that security becomes an affection reservoir to which he returns, often unconsciously. Invisible care also manifests in the soft word at the end of the encounter, an almost inaudible whisper. "I'm here," or "You are seen," breaks the silence and seals what was shared. Words of presence function as foundations, confirming that surrender was unforgettable. They echo in the unconscious, laying the grounds for future connections and deepening the symbolic bond. In his memory, these words emerge as immediate comfort in moments of uncertainty. When a woman understands that the after is as important as the act, she undertakes care that transcends flesh. Her physical body becomes an instrument of emotional support, her embrace, nourishment for his psyche, and in doing so, she places herself as guardian of a sacred instant, not an isolated moment, but a portal to a relationship renewed each time that experience is relived. Therefore, if you seek to make sex unforgettable, realize that the rite does not end with the last caress. It continues in the subtle field where you gave emotions their pulse. Remain, breathe, and care in silence. In that care, in the intertwining of sighs. No longer seeking immediate pleasure, you will engrave in his unconscious a mark that not even time erases. This is the end that never ends, an echo of presence that continues to vibrate long after the last gesture. What remains in the soul when the lights go out and the echo of each sigh still dances in silence? The answer lies in the depth of the encounter. It is not only bodies that touched, but souls that recognized each other. Carl Jung stated that everything profound leaves traces in the unconscious, like footprints of an ancient rite etched in the fine sand of memory. When sex is done with truth, it marks like a symbol that speaks of ourselves and of the one we touched, in a language without literal translation, yet full of hidden meanings. Clarissa Pinkola Estes narrates the woman who dances naked with her soul, the one who knows her body as sacred territory and not as a tool for acceptance. This is the woman who guides us on this path. She knows that each cell carries stories of pain and empowerment, and that in intimate encounter, those stories can receive a new chapter. Perhaps you have carried within you wounds opened by neglect, haste, or another's silence. But the body that enters ritual can transform those wounds into portals of healing by re-signifying each scar as testament to survival. The woman who turns sex into experience does not ask what he desires. She embodies desire as living presence. Her whole body becomes symbolic language, and each gesture is a declaration of love to her own soul. There is no longer a division between reason and desire. Everything pulses in unison, as the culminating moment of an ancestral narrative that begins anew with each encounter. When you allow yourself to become symbol, pleasure becomes mythic memory, and not even time can erase its trail. Pleasure, when guided by the soul, turns into mythic memory. Imagine this: a man who on distant days feels a tightness in his chest at the thought of your gaze's warmth, your touch's reverence, and the strength of your presence. Those memories are not just physiological records, but symbolic landmarks pointing to something greater, to the idea of a love that respects the other's depth, that embraces shadows and honors light. Through the 5 paths we explored, surrender without obligation, touch as prayer, silence as magnetism, symbolic word, and post-orgasm care, we wove a tapestry of meaning. Each stitch reminded us that the body is an instrument of revelation. It reveals our pains and potentials, our fears and fury, our risks and rebirths. And in revealing all that, it releases the desire that pulses beyond the physical instant, beyond the limited scene of the bedroom, elevating it to the golden page of the psyche. You carry within you the wisdom of generations of women who danced naked with their own mysteries. Each lunar cycle and each heartbeat taught you that the sacred feminine is a force of creation, of consolation, and of inner revolution. When the body acquires that reverence, sex ceases to be an isolated act and becomes a rite of passage, a rite of reconnection with oneself and with the other. In this journey, there were no mechanical formulas or infallible recipes. There were invitations for you to dive into what is deepest within you, your energy, your vulnerability, your symbolic potency. The invitation was for you to recognize the body as sacred territory, reserved not for demanded performances, but for authentic encounters. May each sigh have been a prayer, each touch an offering, each silence a portal, and each word a baptism for your feminine soul. And may the care you offered after the apex have sealed the pact of presence, that pact that makes the encounter reverberate long beyond the body. If something within you opened with this video, write in the comments. Sometimes sharing also heals. And if you wish to continue on this soul journey, we are here whenever you wish to return.